Wall Street will be fixated on Jackson Hole, Wyoming this week because that's where the Federal Reserve is holding its annual symposium. Our Fed correspondent Brian Cheung is here. Big expectation for Jerome Powell.
Yeah, absolutely. And TD Securities had a really funny kind of note about this. Said Powell is in a Jackson Hole. And the challenge here, but the challenge here is really just about the messaging that he's going to deliver. Markets are pricing in 1 to 2 rate cuts by the end of this year. So the challenge is, what is Powell going to say, given all the crazy developments that we've seen just since their last meeting on July 31st when they cut rates by 25 basis points, about whether or not there's going to be hints to what the next move might be. And it might not even be as soon as September. Actually, it was interesting to look at the Fed funds futures contracts markets this morning. Only a 90, well, there's only 5% chance that they will get 50 basis points based on what contracts are pricing in.
Really? At the September meeting?
At the September meeting, compared to 95% chance of 25 basis points in that next meeting. That's a big change from what we saw last week ahead of the yield curve inversion, where actually markets are pricing in about a 25% chance of maybe 50 basis points in that next meeting.
And also this week, before Powell speaks to Jackson Hole, we're going to get the minutes from the last FOMC meeting.
Yep.
I mean, that could really, send the market into a tizzy if we found there wasn't consensus for multiple rate cuts going forward.
Yeah, and that's kind of the fascinating thing when you consider that July 31st meeting had 2 dissents, one from Eric Rosengren from the Boston Fed, another from Esther George of Kansas City. And it's going to show a split, not only in terms of whether or not they should have made that 25 basis point cut to begin with, but about how they should have messaged it as well. Don't forget that press conference for Jay Powell was very rocky. So after they decided that they were going to go with the 25 basis point cut, explaining whether or not that was going to be a mid-cycle adjustment or the beginning of an easing policy was going to be a huge question in that conference, and will probably be a big question as we head into this Jackson Hole conference as well. Keep in mind that the yield curve inversion is showing that there are serious middle to long-term kind of concerns about where we're going in terms of where the U.S. trajectory is going, given all the global risks that we're seeing. So is this truly a mid-cycle adjustment? Will Jay Powell stand by the characterization of it as a mid-cycle adjustment in the meeting this week? And that'll be something we'll be tuned into.
Brian, this NABE survey out this morning is just emblazoned in my head. Interesting, they said 55% think the comments from the president influences the Fed decisions. I'd love your quick take on that.
Yeah, so I mean, the NABE survey is fascinating because every quarter they do this, but every quarter they try to mix it up with a new topic. And this was a topic that they picked. They haven't used this in previous surveys, but asking business economists, hey, do you think that the pressures that the Fed is facing right now are really seriously jeopardizing the monetary policy trajectory that we have here in the U.S.? And a lot of economists, 55%, as you know, saying, yes, this is a huge issue. So as we get to Jackson Hole, maybe Powell kind of steps a little further in saying, hey, we are independent. We need to remain independent given the surge of tweets and commentary that we've seen in the past few weeks.